I want to say good afternoon, because I think 12 o'clock here is afternoon, but noon. And I think you're in the afternoon over there, Martin, right? So all the people your side are in the afternoon as well.
3 o'clock for me, so it's afternoon coffee time.
Afternoon, yeah. Just the last one before you can't have any more because of melatonin.
Yeah, well, don't forget I live in Saudi Arabia, so any time is coffee time. Like one of the first things I learned here was went out with some friends and found myself drinking coffee at 2 a.m. It's like, this is a different lifestyle to what I'm used to in the UK.
Yeah, I'm not sure I could do that. I remember being on holiday and having a coffee the night before we were coming home, and I didn't sleep that night at all. I was like, maybe an espresso or a proper strong coffee at 11 o'clock was not going to be the one.
Yeah. Well, welcome to Saudi Arabia.
Yeah. I need to come over and experience it properly. Mate, it's good to see. It's good to have you on. I'm really looking forward to this conversation. Everybody else, I hope you are too. If you are here already and listening, you can add and ask questions to Martin throughout this. And I actually really encourage you to, because you'll have better questions than I will do. Because I think it's probably more relevant. You want to know specific things from Martin. I'm just going to ask really kind of open general questions to get as much knowledge from Martin as possible. But I'm excited to have this. I think, Martin, you are the first Commonwealth, first medalist, actually, maybe on the podcast. So no pressure. Actually, I know Martin. I went to school with Martin's sister, so there's a connection there, and he's a local guy as well. So really look forward to this and seeing this kind of where this goes. I'm going to do this slightly differently. I used to do an introduction, but actually I'm not going to. I'm actually going to throw this over to you, Martin. I want to know a little bit. I want you to share your introduction, tell people who you are, what you do, and then the journey as well to why you are here. Because I think what you do is incredible now, but there's probably so many lessons, and part of why you're here is because of that journey. So over to you, mate.
Okay, well, I actually feel like I'm somebody who's on almost my third transition in life already, even though I'm not even 40 yet, because I left school at 18 and decided I'm going to be a professional athlete, even though I had absolutely no right to be a professional athlete at the stand I was at. So I spent from 18 to 28 as a professional decathlete for Great Britain, competed at 2 Commonwealth Games and just missed out on the Olympics in between the two. That was the big aim, really. I whilst at school, I was a bit lost. What direction am I going in? Do I want to go down an education route? And in my last year at school was when it was announced we're going to have London Olympics in 6 years' time. So I just decided I'm going to do that. Even though I think at the time I was ranked about 200th in the country. And 2 years later, training full time, I got my first international vest for Great Britain, and wondered where I was going to go, Spain, Italy. And then you'll know I ended up in Ashford for my first one, which Rich will know is about 20 minutes from my house, the local track I used to train at. But then 2 years after that, I qualified for the Delhi Commonwealth Games. Again, went in as an absolute rank outsider, no expectations I was going to win anything. But went in incredibly confidently and overconfident, and came away with a bronze medal. And that kind of set me up for the rest of my career, really. If I'm honest, I've been milking that bronze medal for the last 15 years now. But yeah, on retire, I've coached all the way through my career as well. I always was a volunteer coach. So on retirement, that seemed like the obvious route. Went into coaching was kind of the next phase of my life. And worked with the Great Britain team as a coach, and very quickly got recruited out to a sports academy in Qatar in the Middle East, where I went from the development coach, working with the kids, doing multi events, obviously with my decathlon background, could coach all the events. And by the time I left 6 years later, I was the head of athlete development. So I was setting that pathway from where do we find talented young kids? How do we do the foundations really, really well and send them into the right direction in terms of, are they going to be a sprinter, a jumper, or a thrower? And the system I built there has really formed the foundation of my business, which is kind of phase 3 of my life, which is I've taken those pathways that I've developed for athletics, and I've created performance pathways, which is now multi-sport. And it's how do we do that same journey from zero through to high performance across a whole range of sports, and more specifically, how do we bring that high performance kind of ethos and mentality into the school environment? So it's not so much actually about the sports performance, but it's about how do we use sports to become a high performer.
Interesting. So, especially that last bit, how do you use sports to become a high performer? Can you just elaborate a little bit on that?
Well, a lot of people think sports is what you see on TV. They think sports is, for me, doing decathlon was 2 days of run up and down and throwing heavy things. But actually, that's 2 days a year you saw me on TV. There's another 363 days where I was being an athlete, which is the training, the hard work, the dedication that goes behind it. There's also, it's a constant learning environment. It's not just practicing, it's like performance analysis, analyzing your own performance, where the gaps are in your performance, how you can get better. It's communication with a team. I have my coach that works with me, but I also have physiotherapists where I need to be able to explain to them what I've been doing in training and how my body feels, what's the connection between the two, and where am I going next, and where am I trying to peak for competition, so I can build a training program with my coach. There's a whole team of maybe 5 or 6 people around you, those communication skills. So you can't be successful as an athlete just off of being talented and working hard. There's a lot of other skills that are behind the scenes that people don't necessarily see. And they're the traits that I think actually make an athlete rather than someone who just does sport.
Yeah, I gotcha. So it's behaviours behind which create performance that then leads to the success.
Exactly. So it's not just about going and practicing, it's purposeful practice. And it's how do you optimize every single day of training to the best you can. So all of those things that when we're looking at how do you win at the top level when everyone's really talented and everyone's training really hard, that's when those small 1% differences make a huge difference in the end. If 363 days I turned up to training with perfect nutrition, or I turned up with perfect sleep and perfect recovery, or my training plan for that day was just slightly better than everyone else's just that day, or it's tweaked perfectly for me and not just for a generic athlete. Those are differences at the top end.
Yeah, I love that. Should we just stop the podcast now? We just, I think, covered the key parts of performance.
I haven't got anything else.
I love that. We'll definitely come back to that, I think. The other thing I want to come back to is you spoke about in the Commonwealth where you got your bronze medal. You went in there confident and potentially overconfident. Can you recall why?
I think partly my coach did a really good job actually of setting high but realistic targets. So we did an analysis. I think I was supposed to finish maybe 6th or 7th, which sounds quite close, but it's also quite a long way from a medal. The guys at the top normally don't mess up, and and they're usually quite a long way ahead of maybe in the rest of the field. He did a really good job of setting different targets, which were we didn't go in there to win a medal. Actually, we went in there to be, if one of these guys messes up, which in decathlon happens a lot because you've got 10 events, something could go wrong. This guy's a bit of a liability because he just hurt himself a few weeks ago in the long jump. Well, then your aim is, can you beat the 2 British guys or the 2 English guys that you've never beat before? Because if one of these guys messes up, there's a good chance one of those will be the next medalist, or an English person will be the next medalist. Well, why don't you be the next English person? So then there's an opportunity. And then actually we got into the second day, and the person we thought was a liability hurt himself in the hurdles. And all of a sudden I was in a really great place to try and snatch that medal. Whereas if I'd gone in there to just see how it goes, I probably wouldn't have positioned myself on the first day where I needed to be. So I was really confident because I had nothing to lose at that point as well. I'm going to see if I can beat these English guys that I'm not supposed to beat. That's quite a fun game. And that's part of the fun of decathlon as well also, by the way, trying to beat people that should beat you. As a discus thrower who's really, really skinny, trying to beat the big discus throwers, that's part of the fun for me. So we went in there. It was a game. I'm going to try and beat them. There's no right to. I've got nothing to lose. If I don't beat them, it's as expected. If I do beat them, the bonus is I might put myself in a position for a medal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. It's interesting because you spoke about it from a goals perspective, and thinking about it. So yeah, there's an element of this competition, which is the goal. Can you finish above that person? And that's the competition goal, and that's the placing goal. But with what you do, they are quite specific goals. So can you throw this meterage? Can you run this speed? How did your coach give you those goals?
Well, we didn't really have, we knew what kind of score you would need, and that it would be a big stretch for me, but it's potential. But we didn't really ever set outcome goals. I did at the start of the season, and I used to be able to write before the season, I'm going to do this, this, and this for all 10 events, and I'd be pretty accurate with what I would do. But when you go into competition, we don't set outcome goals; you set process goals. So what would I need to do to perform a really good long jump? You know, what are the technical things that I need to do? What are even the psychological things I would need to do? So if there's an event that I find exciting, like the high jump is my best event, what do I need to do to get ready for the high jump? I know I can high jump. It's not going to be a technical thing. It might be keeping calm under pressure, controlling my run up so I don't get overexcited and run too fast. That might be my outcome goal or my process goal. For another event like the javelin, where I'm not so confident, then maybe the goal is, well, make sure I control the tip of my javelin. That's it. You're going in there one thing. If you control the tip of your javelin, most of the other things line up and you'll be fine. So we go in with what do you need to do to get the outcome? As soon as you start chasing the outcome, you forget that's why I call them process goals. You forget the process that gets you to the board at the right time and in the right place, in the right position at the right speed, that gives you the jump you're looking for.
It's interesting as well, because as a coach, working with kind of professionals, you do the same thing. But you might be a little bit more specific with the goal because you need to understand what you're trying to do and what you want to do. But then you break that up into the things that you have to do to achieve that big thing. And so, yeah, process goals, or you call them the actions in a workplace, right? To achieve that goal. So it seems the collaboration, this is why I love sport and I love working with professionals, is the collaboration between the two things is so clear.
Yeah, but the key thing is if you give someone 6 different actions to do at work, how many are they actually going to be able to do and tie together? So we actually look for someone I work with, calls them anchors, and I really like that. So I work with someone from Taekwondo, so calls them the anchors. Here's only 4 things in Taekwondo that you need to do really well. How everyone expresses those 4 things is individual, but here's the 4 things you need to hit well. And you know what? This is the one you really need to focus on for this competition. Especially in those high pressure environments. So for me, that was the first time that I was really on TV. It was the first time in a stadium with 50, 60,000 people at a very different environment. If you say, just go out there and do good, or here's 6 different things you need to do, I have no chance. You know what? When the pressure comes on, the camera comes in your face, just do that one thing we've been working on. And everything else will flow off of that. But knowing what that one thing is, and knowing when you're working with other athletes, how do you select the right thing? That's the challenge.
Yeah. And it comes back to the communication piece, right? Because I can see that being such an important part. Were you very good at communicating with your coach the way that you felt, and when a good one happened, you were focusing on the right thing. So through that 4 years, that you were able to communicate that actually using the javelin wasn't your strongest one. That I find when I know the javelin's in the right spot, the head's in the right spot, then I know I'm probably going to throw a better javelin than I'm not going to. Clear communication over time. Your coach has gone, actually, that's probably your anchor.
Yeah. So coaching is actually something that's a little bit overrated in the competition environment. Okay. So my coach always took the view that if I have to coach you in the competition environment, I haven't done my job for the last 10 months. When it gets into competition, sometimes coaching is just go and do the thing you've got to do. You know how to do it, just go and do it. And that would be something like the high jump. I'm not going to get a lot of feedback. He knows how to do it. We're just going to check a couple of things. Are they good? Okay, cool. Same with 1500 meters. He knows I can run at 1500 meters. So when it came to the final 1500 and there's 3 of us vying for a medal, what all the coaches discussed, what have you told him? I told him to do this, told him to do that. For me, what do you tell him? We'll just go and win. That's fine. Like, you know what to do. You know, so it's but so the communication and all of the strategies happen before you step onto the field. Yeah, there shouldn't. You're helping and shaping, and really what you're doing as a coach at that point is helping me to understand what's happening, or helping your athlete to understand what's happening. You're not really teaching anymore, telling them what to do. You should just be reminding them of their cues, or helping them to find the timing or the rhythm or the perfect position. But there shouldn't be. You definitely shouldn't be adding anything new.
Yeah, you're not coaching at that point, are you? You're just there as It's really interesting. But I'm just trying to figure out how that applies. And I think I really like the anchor piece, and I see that working for someone doing a presentation. Exactly. That is your Olympic. That is you. I've prepared. I've done the presentation. You don't want to correct someone whilst they're giving their presentation. Yeah. All of that work should have been in the background. Yeah. You help them to put the big pillars in place. What are the big markers within your presentation? What are you going to hit? What are you going to deliver? And then you can work on, well, how are you going to deliver it? How are you going to make it engaging? How are you going to represent it within your slide that people can understand it really quickly? And then I think you're ready. Off you go. You know what to do. Yeah. It's just the simple messaging, isn't it? And then the reminders, this is where the anchors come into it, as a reminder of, and I did this recently, is kind of the perfect opening. If you focus on how you open, the rest of it flies. You've got rid of the nerves, because that's the worry, is the anxiety. Well, okay, let's make sure that opening is fantastic, because once you go through that opening, the rest of it just happens. And it's the anchor, as you said. Yeah. And how you start, how you finish are the 2 important things. How you get there in the middle is not so important. For me, that was the 400 meters. I used to get nervous for 400 meters at the start of the day because it was so horrible, even though it's the last event. And how I actually got over it was by saying, well, I know the last part's going to be horrible. The last part's going to hurt. But if I just focus on the first 50 meters or first 100 meters and executing that really well, I know I'm going to commit to the rest anyway. I know I have the ability to go where I need to go later on down the line. So stop thinking about what's going to happen later. Do the part that's now. Focus on the start. Focus on setting up the race well. And actually, if you do that part, the second half becomes easier because you've set it up well. Yeah. What's I'm going to stick with the first career as of an athlete for a little longer, because what's astonishing, and you'll probably say this, is not astonishing, sorry. What is quite outstanding for your story is that you did it in 4 years, right? You went from 250th in the country, did you say? Something like that, yeah. A nobody, probably fair enough. Yeah, to then a Commonwealth bronze medalist 4 years later. That's probably, from the most part, unheard of in a lot of that, like, sports. What do you think the key elements were for you to achieve that, or to do that? Well, I think people assume that if you were an athlete, you must have been super talented. And to be honest, like, I'm 6'6" tall. It helps a lot in a sport like decathlon. I was a kid who did lots of sport, but I wasn't particularly good at anything. So I was a sporty kid. So it's not that I'm not talented. But again, it depends what you mean by talent. But I'm a guy who had lots of skills from lots of sports I could then put into decathlon later. And again, this is what I do with my business now with Performance Pathways. It's like, well, if you learn all of these skills from all these sports, you become a sporty person, and you become quite an irritated person. I've never played paddle, but I can have a game. You know, like I'm the exact same as you. So, but what I was when I was probably 15 is I was actually a really late developer. So I was great at primary school. At secondary school, everyone grew muscles, grew a beard, and I was still like high-pitched voice, running around, falling over my own feet. And so when I went to schools, I would tell people when I was at 15
and we had sports day, 15, 16, I didn't get to run in the relay because I wasn't not even in the top 4 fastest kids in my class, let alone in year group or the school, which is not someone who thinks going to go on to become an Commonwealth medalist. But the skills were there, and there's a right time for everyone to do it. The difference was I saw the people that were the early developers who were seen as talented relied on the talent. Whereas I didn't see myself as someone as talented. So I had to rely on everything else. And how am I going to beat people that are more talented than me? And that meant I had to work harder, for one. But I had to learn about the sport, which is why I was coaching at the same time as being an athlete. So I would do my 6 hours of training a day, and then I would do another 2 to 3 hours of coaching in the evening. And when I look back, the point I really dipped in my career was the point I stopped coaching, because that was an extra 3 hours of thinking about it, and an extra 3 hours of demonstrating the fundamental skills, because I was working with kids, teaching the fundamentals really, really well. I'm doing this because I'm thinking about foot placements in my head in the shot put, but still in there somewhere. But that was it. It was. I lived it for that 4 years. I did nothing but that. So when I wasn't training, I was coaching. When I wasn't coaching, I was watching it on TV, because my coach had videos from every game since the 80s. And when I go home and eat my lunch, I'll be watching it and just learning. So I was absolutely absorbed in it for that 4 years. Basically did nothing but that.
Yeah. I also think another thing here, which I think also transfers to sport, and it transfers to the workplace, is you said that late bloomer, but you are built for your sport, but you didn't do your sport until you recognized that could have been your sport, right? So genetically good for being, it's like Michael Phelps, right? Michael Phelps is genetically built to be a swimmer.
Yeah. And to a certain extent, my coach saw me. I was actually doing high jump more than decathlon. I used to do decathlon for fun. And we'd do the county championships, the Kent championships, and I'd finished like in the bottom half because I was just doing it for fun. I hadn't learned the event. But he basically looked at me and said, well, if you find someone 6'6" and you add a bit of muscle on them and you teach them how to throw, then you've basically got a decathlete. And I could jump 2 meters as a high jumper while I was at school, which just started to creep towards national standards in the high jump, but nowhere near international standards. And when you look at international standards now, can you jump 2 meters 30, 2 meters 35 to make the Olympics? Probably not. I'd be jumping a lot higher if I was. But decathlon, you've got probably more potential in. So I made the decision, do I want to get even skinnier from the skinny kid I was to be a high jumper, or do I put on some muscle and become a decathlete? And decathlon's much more fun because the variety. When it's high, how many times can you jump over a stick before you get bored? Not too many. But also, I was a bit more inclined to add 10 kilos of muscle than try and lose 5 kilos as an already skinny kid. So I kind of fell into it and was encouraged in the right direction rather than that I had a massive passion for it.
Yeah. And the reason why, and so I'm just recognizing that, partly obviously fell into it, slightly pushed and slightly recognizing that was probably a better way for you. But it's working to your strengths. And I think that's the crossover here between the workplace. Like when you work to your strengths and what you're good at, naturally you're going to be better at them and will deliver at a higher level or a higher rate output for your work. So if you're naturally fantastic with numbers, then when you're given numbers, you're going to be good at numbers and the admin side of things. But if you're fantastic with people, then sales or kind of speaking or group stuff is going to be great. So yeah, that's just the connection I saw there, but also an important part. Thanks, Ifalays. I see you commenting. Glad you're watching. Where do I want to go now? You mentioned a couple of times kind of being an athlete is kind of similar to starting a business or running a business. Can you just elaborate?
Yeah. So when you retire from being an athlete, there's a big hole. I basically crossed the finish line in my last race and kind of went, okay, that's that done. That's 10 years of my life. What was the point of that? Because as soon as you finish, you've forgotten about it. And someone else, I was a Commonwealth medalist, and then 4 years later, someone else was a Commonwealth medalist, and you're that guy who used to run around in Lycra for a bit, So it leaves you with this hole of what are you going to do? And sport doesn't fulfill that for me anymore. Because once I've done it at a high level and in a big stadium, even watching it doesn't really fulfill me anymore, because I only really get joy from the process and being on the inside as a coach or as an athlete. So I don't really do sport. I work in sport, but I work in the process side of sport, not the performing or the watching it. When I went into starting Performance Pathway, it's the first time I really felt that buzz again of I'm on a journey. And it was, I'm starting with zero. I have basically no real business experience. I'd run a couple of little things. I set myself up as a coach, but no real business experience. But I'm going to have to learn everything about it. I have a huge goal and a huge vision, and I set myself the same 4-year target, 2 years to get this business built and set up and established as a business, and then another 2 years' time. Well, what would be the equivalent of a Commonwealth Games bronze medalist? How can I be the one of the best school sports platforms in the world in 4 years? That was my target. So we're actually now 2.5 years in. The first year was just building behind the scenes. No one really knew what I was doing. A few people knew I was building a business, but I was just away building my team around me to help develop it. Same as you have a coach and a physio and nutritionist. And then kind of launched it and went out to some conferences and spoke about it. My first kind of international vest, as it were, like put the business out into the world and compete. Start putting yourself up against other businesses. And now we're in that phase where it's really starting to grow. And we start to work out, well, what would that Commonwealth Games feeling look like? What would it look like to be one of the best school sports platforms in the world? So we start to look at things. Now we're planning our first conference in Germany. We're now actually going international and doing those kind of things. So I think where for me it feels the same is this idea of I'm going to start with zero and I'm going there, and having that huge goal and that sense of direction, and I've got a huge amount to learn in order to achieve it, and an awful lot of work to do to achieve it. But I'm starting now. That's the closest I've got to that athlete feeling again.
Yeah, I really love that. And I can understand that as a business owner myself, right? And a sports person, so I can see that kind of connection, different sport, obviously. How do you transfer that in? What are the key lessons from maybe like a professional? What are the key things that you would go, these are the key things that a professional can take away from that? Because the thing I'm hearing here is basically, as you said it yourself, right? The Olympics happens every 4 years. Commonwealth happens every 4 years. There's like 360 days where you're not competing. It's all training. Well, the workplace is the opposite way around, really. What are the key lessons a professional, which is an employee, can take?
Well, I don't think it is that different, because what we're saying is, you perform 2 days a year, but you do all the work 363 days a year. Well, that is the work. So that is the same as going to work. The difference is, as an athlete and as a business owner, I'm not just going to work, doing what I need to do and get out. Everything I do has to be taken us somewhere. So sometimes I have to do the groundwork. Sometimes, like now, we're in a content creation phase. I spend an awful lot of time behind my laptop. I've got to build this. It's going to take me a long time. But when I do, it takes me somewhere. So no work is ever really wasted. It's always towards a goal. And I think that sometimes at work, it's like if you've got to do that admin-y bit or the bit of the grunt work, sometimes it feels like you're basically doing it for someone else, because you don't really want to have to do that part, and everyone's got a part of their job that's like that. Can you make that worthwhile? Can that take you in a direction that you want to go, or take your project in a direction it wants to go? I think that's where I would try and realign some of that work, because as an athlete and as a business owner, you'll know there's no way of getting away from it. The work's got to be done. But is it really taking you where it needs you to go? As an athlete, if you're doing work that's not helping you to get better as an athlete, that's actually just time wasted and, more importantly, energy wasted.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to do it in that 4 years, everything has to take you to there.
And I love that, because I'm such a goal setter, and I'm such the importance of having a clear vision, right? And you just kind of demonstrated that importance. So then you set your vision, you set your wants are, and your success looks like. Then the work you do is focused towards that. So there's a purpose, there's meaning to that work, and then you're setting learning or your work around that, and then you connect even with the boring stuff, which could be anything for anybody, but at least there's a reason for it. That boring stuff is going to help me achieve this. It also gives you some more focus around the development you need to be taking on and the way that you approach bits, because you're aiming towards something, whether that's a promotion, or whether that's a business, or whether it might be, right? Management people, there's this focus of this progression and this vision that you want to achieve and the person you want to be. And by having that, then you go off and do it.
Yeah, so you're talking a lot about vision, and I actually prefer that. I think everyone talks about sport as goal setting. I actually don't particularly like outcome goals. So for me, goals are always process goals. How are you going to get better? I never set a target number that any of my athletes need to hit. I never say you need to achieve this score, or this jump, or this throw. It's always a goal that's going to make you a better athlete, and that could be in any way, and that will lead to a better performance, whatever that performance is. We're going to get, why aim for a 14-meter shot put when actually we could aim to improve this, and this? Well, maybe it'll go 15, or maybe it'll only go 13 this year, but because of all that work, it will then jump to 15 or 16 the year after. So I prefer the word vision of, well, what would it look like if you were the best athlete you could possibly be? What would it look like if you're the best business owner, your best business you could possibly have, or the best co-worker you could possibly be? And just work towards that. And these journeys are not linear. Even my journey towards Commonwealth Games was not linear. I got injured the year of the Commonwealth Games and basically thought, well, that's it, it's game over. But because I got injured, I had to take some time off, which meant I peaked at the games. The complete luck. And 6 months before, I thought, well, that's almost possibly career over, because if I don't make the Commonwealth Games, I'll probably have to go and get a job. And instead, that's been the rest of my career. So I prefer the vision as a sense of direction rather than the clear goal, because also sometimes we don't know what we want, or we're not, or don't be so sure what you want, you wouldn't take something even better.
And I work with so many people who don't know what they want, and they struggle so much to build a vision, which then makes it hard to this at this juncture, I guess. Yeah,
and I think I see that a lot. I mean, I struggle with work. It's never been something that I've wanted to do, as in like work a proper job, because it's quite hard. Sometimes you're just turning up and you're doing it and you're not quite sure why. So I tried to tie all of those things into my personal vision. I go to work to achieve this goal within work, or I'm trying to help the worker achieve this vision, but it also helps me to achieve my vision. So me now working at a sports club in Saudi Arabia, well, that's actually like takes me in the direction I want to go in terms of my life in management and senior leadership. It's financially, it's good. It fits my personal brand as a sports person. So the work, everything I do in work is learning something new related to me, related to my sport, related to my topic. And is it helping my life go in the direction I want it to? I think so.
Yeah, I love that. We've spoken quite a lot about the processes, and some of those processes are kind of the traits that underpin performance. Goal setting, kind of some of the resilience, the work ethic, some of those key processes. What one of these do you think is most overlooked?
Overlooked. I think the one that's the one that's overrated is the work and the resilience. I see resilience now being about, like, no doubt you need the work ethic. If you don't have it, you're not going to do it. I see resilience has become a little bit of a polite way of saying man up. Things are tough. So you need resilience. Like, well, maybe, but there's smart resilience, there's stupid resilience. Being stupid resilience, just pushing through things that you don't need to push through, just to show that you're resilient. So those things I think are needed, but they're a bit more nuanced than we see it. And we assume that all athletes, if they just work really hard, then they'll get performance. It's not quite true. It's what work you're doing. So I think what's more important is the growth mindset, this constant search for ways to get better, new constant analysis of yourself in a non-judgmental way. How am I going to improve? And then seeking out that support. I think there's a kind of bit of a stereotype that sports people are stupid. The ones at the very top are very smart. They know themselves. They know their sport, and they also know the roles of everyone around them as well. I used to go in for physio at my university, and they would bring in the student physios to sit in the room, and I would they'd obviously know I'm a student there as well, because I went to uni when I was 25 at the back end of my career, and I talk to the physio and I tell him, here's what I need, here's where I'm tight, here's how I'd like you to release it, and he'd have a look, yeah, agreed and done. And the students would ask, well, how long is this guy needs? What, third year of physio? He's not a physio, just knows stuff, and to get to that level of knowledge across all of the topics, so you can hold those high level conversations with your whole team. That's the bit that I think people don't understand about sports people.
Because they're passionate. But that's, I'm making an assumption here. I'm going to ask you instead. Do you see that across all of the people you've been connected with and had those conversations with? Or is it a trait that you have because you're passionate about it?
No, I see that in a lot of high performance sport people. I was probably a little bit of an extreme in some ways. That, like, by the end of my career, I wouldn't listen to music when I was warming up. I'd listen to a podcast about sport, because that's what stimulated my mind as I got older. But I see it a lot. There's a really good coach who said robots don't make it. You can't, if you do what I tell you to do, okay, fine, but why am I doing it? How would you like me to do it? That's really where the technique changes come from understanding what you're trying to do. So all of the people that I've known that are really good have all been really inquisitive. I know Goldie Sayers, who's our Olympic medalist in javelin, her coach said if you asked her to go and wash her hands, she'd ask you 8 questions. That's just who she is. I see most of the athletes at the top like that, and even you see people like Cristiano Ronaldo. He's here in Saudi. The guy's super smart. He's super smart, and he knows business, because what they do in football is really business as well as football. And he has his own team around who doesn't use a team from the club. He brings his own team of specialists. Well, how do you select them? Because you know all about all of these topics. All the people at the top are that way smarter than me. Yeah,
it's true. I'm checking. Is there a way to transfer that into the workplace?
Well, I think so. I think because the rule of you are the average of the 5 people you have around you. Well, in the workplace, you're probably surrounded by some really super smart people and some not so smart people. And when you have to build your team as a leader, as a manager, you're looking for people that you need to be able to hold high level conversations with people across all their disciplines as a leader or as a manager. And you also need them to be able to interact with each other on that same level. So when I was coaching in Aspire in Qatar, I was one of the younger coaches in the office, and I inherited a team with the head of biomechanics, the head of physiology, the head of strength conditioning, and the head of sports psychology were all in my team, which is awesome. But I also thought, well, who the hell am I to tell you guys what to do? So what my job was, it's a great team, but I'm basically new here. So my job was, can I hold a conversation with each of them to facilitate them to do the best they can around the program I'm building, and also for them to communicate with each other. so that we can implement a shared system. That worked really well. I could have come in and said, right, I'm in charge of this now, right, I need you to do this, this and this. I don't know what they know. And the only way for me to find out is to ask questions. So I think that's the kind of part of me. I was a centre as an athlete, and I had my coach writing the program. Well, he needs to communicate with me, but he needs to communicate with the strength conditioning coach to make sure that they're supporting each other. And then nutritionists need to know what both are doing to be able to prescribe the right food for the exercise I'm doing. That part of me as an athlete at the centre is management.
Yeah, because you kind of see it as, I would see that the way I'm seeing it anyway, is that athlete is the manager because it's putting people together and it's making sure that everybody works together well, and how they communicate is on point. And the work I do with management is that it's communication. It's how do we get this team to work well together, and what are the key characteristics that's going to help there. And that's basically
pretty much. And there's some athletes who want the coach to do all that for them, or there's some coaches who think that that's their role. And then there's some coaches like mine who he would write the plan because it's his job, but every year we'd go for lunch and we discuss what happened last year. What did I think happened? What did he think happened? And then he'd go away and draw up the plan. It was never either of us were the boss or in charge. His job is to write the training plan for next year, but he's going to do that with all the information that I give him. And then I'm going to check that I'm happy with the plan based on how I saw it. And so it's actually a mutual agreement on every single topic with every single member of the team. And they also need to be doing that. They all need to know how their stuff lines up. Yeah,
I love that. And you can see that connection as a manager. So I think it's a really good time to kind of move into that management kind of piece. We've obviously gone into a leadership role. What are the key skills that you've taken from your time in sport to leadership?
So one of the things that I think I'm really good at, from having come from a decathlon background, is making complexity really simple. So when you do decathlon, you have 10 different events. So that's 10 different techniques that you have to try and teach. But also, well, what does sprinting look like? But what does sprinting for a long jumper look like? Kind of the same, but also there's slight tweaks in them. And then you've got a shot put, which is wildly different. And you've got a high jump, which is wildly different in terms of technique. But it's also wildly different in terms of the level of strength needed versus the level of speed needed versus the level of power needed. So, well, how do you train all of those at the same time? So you've got different energy systems, the 1500 meters, the 400 meters, the sprints, the shot put, different energy systems. How do you balance all of those? And each of those has wildly different training systems. I can't do all of them. So you have to start looking at, well, what are the most important elements of each? And I'm going to build something unique around that. And then you've got the individual within that. I'm a great high jumper, shot putter, not so fast. Well, am I going to improve that part? Or am I going to capitalize on that part? And you have to then create a new system. So with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of data points and things that you need to consider, what are the most important things that you're going to do and how are they going to tie together? I think that's the thing that I'm good at, taking that complexity and bringing it down. And then you've got to communicate that to people and distribute different roles to different people and make sure they're all working toward the same goal and they all know their part of that puzzle. So I think that's probably my strength, and that's probably where the uniqueness of decathlon comes into the workplace, in kind of the leadership role. Getting it implemented can be a challenge.
Why?
Because I think when you solve that kind of problem, you go down a lot of steps to get there. And then you go to people and say, oh, here's a solution. Well, they haven't been down the journey you've been down necessarily. They haven't made all of those individual connections and know how this and this connect when they don't necessarily appear to, but they do because of the problem we're trying to solve. It takes us this way around instead of this way around, but it gets us to the same solution. So going to people with, don't worry, I've solved it. Here's the answer. This is your job. Do this. Well, they need to know why and how that connects to everything else. And I think sometimes it's tempting to just say, okay, as a leader, I've solved it. This is what I want you to do. But you need to take time to kind of walk people through it, I think, and make sure that they fully understand their place in the system, and then they feel a part of that system, rather than feel like somebody who's turning up, as we were talking about earlier, someone who turns up and just doing admin, versus, well, I know why this admin is useful because it takes us here. Now that's not admin anymore. Now that's part of the journey to the vision.
Yeah. And so I see that as when I look at the leaders and the managers I've worked with, the understanding of the kind of the role of a leader and a manager is not doing the thing. It's how you get your people to do the thing and working out what the things are. Yeah.
So an example for me is that at work, because it's in sport, we need people to put their competition results in. Somebody made a spreadsheet, and I just sent a message out to my team. Can you make sure when we do a competition, add your competition results in? Nobody did it. I was like, okay. And I was like, well, probably because it's boring, because it's just on an Excel spreadsheet, so it looks a bit rubbish. Let's create it into something a bit nicer, so it looks a bit more worthwhile putting in. And then still nobody did it, and you reminded them, and no one was doing it. And you realise it's nothing to do with the spreadsheet and that it looked a bit unprofessional, and now it looks professional. It's because they don't know why they're putting it in, because they put data in, but they never get data out. But for me, it's really useful because we can make decisions off of that. And we're trying to make decisions for the future as well. But in a year's time, we want to see how this person did. Well, that needs to be communicated of what we're going to do with this data and how that's going to support you. Otherwise, what I've just done is create an admin task for them. They're doing work for me and they don't know why. Well, and it's a very simple example, but it's also like quite an obvious example of how I've just asked you to do admin. Why? Like, it's boring. Of course they're not going to do it.
Yeah. I think there's a couple of things that come to my mind there. And I've written them down. One is kind of going back to that vision and meaning piece, right? Kind of helping people understand what you're trying to achieve, why you're trying to achieve it, creates the buy-in. The other thing I think people lack is clarity. I think that people will lack it so much within the workplace, and I see it all the time within my coaching. Is there's no clarity in a lot of systems or teams, and actually by putting some clarity in there for that vision and meaning and the whys and what they want people to do, then that would help people a lot. It also connects to the self-determination theory. Do you know much about the self-determination theory?
Autonomy, belonging, competence. Huh?
Yeah, basically. But with the competence thing here and the relatedness is where this kind of touches it into, right? If you can relate to the vision and the mission, and as a manager, you're explaining that to the people, they're going to be more motivated to do the work, and they're going to do the work better.
Yeah. Well, I had a rule with my athletes. They were always scared to ask questions. Like, a lot of people have this idea of trust the process as a coach. Trust the process, which basically means don't question my training. Don't question my program. Just follow it and you'll be okay. I always had a rule of, like, I wanted them to ask me questions, because when they ask questions, it means they gain an understanding. But also, if they ask me, why are we doing this? How does this help my performance? And I can't give them the answer. Well, then why are we doing it? Yeah. And that's something that I haven't got to in this job yet. But like, if someone asks me, why are we filling this spreadsheet? And I don't really know. I just feel like we should have the results somewhere. Well, then why are we doing it? Yeah.
It goes back to that stupid resilience, right?
Exactly. We're doing stuff for the sake of it. Like, and I fall into this trap quite a lot of starting to build something, and this looks really pretty. It looks really good. Let me just build it and build it and build it. But actually, this part was useful. When I got excited and I built the rest of the 90%, that 90% was useless. It didn't help us at all. I was fine with the 10%. Go on, use it, or go and find another thing that's the 10% that gives us, the 90% of the results. And I think sometimes I notice it when I do it, that I'm sometimes have to take a step back and say, I've just got excited here and I'm doing it, and I'm adding colours Why? Let me transfer this over to a PowerPoint presentation that no one's ever going to look at, but it looks great. But why? But when I do it for myself, I'll notice it. If I assign that to someone else and they're just off doing it, I don't see the wasted time necessarily, but they'll feel it, and that's very different.
It's a really nice message there for management to understand and to clear up the BS that people put into work. If you can keep it simple and being able to explain it and how it connects to why you're investing the time in that and asking them to invest the time into that. Because if you know you've got to do admin and that admin connects to success and what we're trying to achieve as a team, and you find that admin boring, then I know I've got to do it though, because it's going to help us. Right? Yeah. I use my example for hockey, right? I wouldn't say I'm the greatest fan of doing fitness. I'm not the biggest fan, but coming from a PT, it's not great, right? But I'd much rather be playing hockey than doing the running. But I know if we do the running and the admin and that fitness piece, the outcome for us, the team, is going to be higher.
Yeah. So what I would do from a coaching point of view is I would say, here's someone who likes playing hockey, doesn't like doing fitness. How do I get the fitness in through the back door? So how do I get you to, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to make the pitch bigger. So you have to run further. And we're just going to do that three times a week. We're playing on a big pitch, or we're going to take some players out so you have to do some more work. And we start to build now game-specific fitness without you knowing that you're doing fitness. The other thing is, I could say, Rich, you're not very fit. So put the hockey stick down, let's run across the field, and we'll get really fit. And are you going to get any fitter than you would have done? Well, you're going to get fit, but not necessarily game fit. It's a different type of fitness. So, and also, you're not going to be enjoying it because you're not playing hockey. What's the equivalent of that in the workplace? I'm not really sure. But that's how I would look at it from a sports point of view. Really easy fix. You've got to do some admin. Okay, well, how do we put this admin into a task that is? So I'm doing this at work at the moment. As an example, I have they're not an assistant, but they're our logistics officer who basically acts like my right hand man. And we have people traveling for competitions and training camps, and the system we have in place is chaotic at the moment. So they're running around just doing admin to try and keep everything on track. You go, cool. Let's build a system. As you go through the next training camp, let's get everything down and see how it all ties together, and we'll build it into a system. So they're still doing their training camp, doing the planning, which is a nightmare for them. But at the same time, it's moving in a direction that makes it more efficient for next time. And we're starting to see how all the pieces link together. So they're getting the work done, but they're also playing hockey. They're also doing logistics and operations.
Yeah, it's really nice. I like that. How do you get people to do the work they don't want to do, but in a way that they feel like they enjoy?
Yeah, can you wrap it up?
So, and I think when I think about it from a manager as coach standpoint, it is the ability to ask those questions, right? It's the ability to go, what is it you enjoy? And if you know your people, I know Martin likes the variety of different things because using the decathlon. So, but we need to get this done. Martin, how you've got this goal or this thing we need to do? What's going to be the best way to get this done? You're going to have the answer more than I'm going to have this answer.
Yeah, and when people don't do something, there's not many reasons they don't do it. It's either they didn't know they needed to do it in the first place, they didn't understand how to do it, or they just didn't want to do it. It's pretty much going to be those three things. Okay, which one is it? If you didn't know, then fine, it just needs to be done. If you didn't know how to do it, well, that's a skill we need to teach you, and that can be fun to learn a new skill. Or if you didn't like doing it, okay, well, how do we either shift that task to someone else who does like doing it? Why should you have to do it just because it's on your job description? This guy loves it. This swap tasks, or can we wrap it up in a way that makes it feel a bit more meaningful for you?
Can I add a fourth one there? Just because I think it's good to add to why people don't do tasks. It's too big.
Yeah.
And so if you break the task down into something smaller, it becomes a little bit easier.
Yeah, I would. You could put that under doesn't know how, or or I need to do that, but I don't know where to start. Would be Yeah, it would be a similar thing. And actually, we went there with the with this kind of competition thing. It's like, we want to build this huge system. For me, I'm thinking complex systems. We need to build this huge system, and how it all fits in. How training camps would just be one part of that. And then it kind of went nowhere. And I realized I probably set this too big a task. Let's build this. For me, I'd build the whole system out, and then I work out how I deliver each of those. For them, actually, it was probably better to go, let's build this one and build this one, and then we'll work how they link together. I think might have been a better approach. So I probably did what the mistake that you made, which is I made a task too big and a bit too daunting to start. Whereas actually, what's the first step they need to do? And I should probably do the big high level thinking on it.
Yeah. I love that. Last question. What's one lesson that we can take from elite sport, or like Olympic sport? Because I think it's probably different to sports, so different in all places. Maybe let's do sport in general, right? So elite sport that corporate teams currently miss and should be doing.
For me personally, it was understanding that it is a team. When I was an athlete, athletes can be quite arrogant. I probably fell into that to a certain extent, that I'm the athlete, I'm in the center. And I wish now I'd leaned on that team more. I early doors, I had it. Later on, it fragmented. And I was actually much better off having a smaller core team that worked really well together. Everybody was in Maidstone, where we're from, or nearby, so they could all talk to each other. As I got better and I grew, I started having a technical coach in London, another one in Surrey. I had my physio was in West London, and the team fragmented. And actually, bringing back down to that core team who really know and work well together is actually better than running off to find the best people who all individually are great, but they're not talking to each other. And I think you see the people that have done really well in sport, like we said about Cristiano Ronaldo, he's built his own team. He doesn't move to a new football team and then pick up a load of new stuff. He takes a whole team with him because they know him better than anyone. I think that works really well. If you can make a small team that's really tight and all talking to each other, it's better than a group of individuals who are really high performance.
Yeah, such a great message to finish on. Thank you, Martin. I really enjoyed this. We probably could dive deeper into so many different areas, but I think we covered some really fascinating and great points for individuals and for teams and for leadership. So yeah, thank you for your time. Where can people find you?
Performancepathways.co.uk is my website, but if you search for me on LinkedIn, you'll definitely find me on there. Pretty active on there with my dream team running it behind the show. Or reach out to me at info@performancepathways.co.uk.
Perfect. You're also connected to this post as well, so you should be able to connect via there as well. So yeah, please do. If you want to connect with me and learn more about me, or want to explore some podcast stuff, then please drop me a line. Other than that, one next week talking about why men don't go to therapy. So really interesting one. Got a lot of people coming to that one as well. So get yourself signed up. In the meanwhile, have a fantastic weekend. And thanks again, Martin. Really appreciate it. Stay where you are. Everybody else. Bye-bye.